Hey, Navigators, welcome to our August session, a super special session with our Reimagining Reentry work group here, learning about some of the amazing work that they have been doing as system navigators at one of those most challenging intersection of systems between the criminal legal system, child welfare system, and different kinds of behavioral health services and systems. So it's that really thorny intersection. But our theme today is being photographers. What is it to be a photographer as a navigator, where we are using our powers as storytellers and as documenters for good to better understand the lived experiences and realities of the people that we serve here. So our theme here, transforming reentry, how peer-led communities are rewriting overdose prevention and recovery is our theme. And we've got a name generator out in the chat where you can give yourself a photography-oriented name here. But just as a note for folks, when you're looking at the name generator, you might see, let me do the redo here, generate my name. It comes out as black here, so you might need to double click on that to see the actual word. So I'm going to become Margaret Framing the Future Ladry here. Be sure to give yourself a fun photography name. The other piece that we are going to do here is we're warming up and getting signed in is we want to think about the power of negative images and stereotypical images. By answering the question you see here up on the Menti poll, when you hear the words addict and inmate, what comes to mind? Someone came right on in with that first association. Yep, bum, face tat, like the jelly roll look. Yeah, right. So keep those stereotypical images coming to mind, because that's what we're going to be working with today with the group. Yep. All of these images, all these associations. Keep it coming. Right, so we're getting some different kinds of images here. Scary, lazy. So we're getting both images and different characteristics. So I'm hoping as we're signing in here, maybe Ashley and Rebecca, you guys might need to chat a little bit about how you've been using this question in the jails that you serve. Get a sense of what is the images that are coming to mind for the folks that you're working with in county jails.
Sure. Yeah. I was just adding, my little words in there. I ran this little social experiment with the deputy jailers in the Knox County Detention Center, just to ask them, hey, what do you think the difference is? Let me back up. They thought that I was silly. They thought that my language was silly and that I was just trying to rename things. And I understand that, but I asked them, I ran the experiment. I asked them, I said, what happens when I ask you to think about someone who's schizo? What do you think about when you think about if I say somebody's schizo? And they explained to me, all kinds of different stereotypical harmful things. And I said, what if I told you that's someone who's suffering with severe mental illness? They treated them with more kindness. They gave them more grace. They were more willing to extend themselves to help people when we use kinder language.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. So we wanted to start our conversation today by activating some of those stereotypes, right? And recognizing how real they are. We have these images, we have these emotions that immediately come to mind and to our hearts, even like before we can think about it, really, right? And that's what stereotypes do. They're cognitive shortcuts. So what we're seeing as our big words here: scary, dangerous, unfortunate upbringing, recidivism, manipulative, con artists, homeless, unstable, right? And some of these words, right, are words that have been really charged, maybe used against the folks that we are working with as help seekers. Bad parents, victim, trauma, childhood trauma, desperate, unreliable, right? So we have some pretty loaded images of folks who have experienced addiction and people who've been incarcerated that we want to unpack a little bit here today. So keep those coming in. So again, we can have those front of mind with the work that we're going to be learning from with Reimagining Reentry. So I'll turn it over to Savvy to talk a little bit about looking at our shifting languages, as Rebecca said, the importance of making those shifts. Savvy, what are we seeing here in terms of the guidelines, what to avoid and what to use instead, and the importance of this language shift?
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Savvy Shabazz. I'm founder of Life Coach E2 and T2 and the Reentry Fellowship. I am a formerly incarcerated person, and I had the opportunity to connect with a lot of organizations across the nation. So I do want you to please understand and take the time to understand this is not Savvy Shabazz language. This comes from groups of formerly incarcerated people and people in the recovery world from across the nation, thousands of people that I travel with and facilitate with and workshops with and change laws and bills. And we decided about 7 years ago that we wanted to change the narrative. And that came with shifting our language as well. And we realized that we are people too. And we are humans too. And we wanted to start with that by creating people first language. And that helps shift our language. So as you can see, some of the negative connotative words that we see: felon, offender, convict, inmates, ex-con, criminal, prisoners, and defendants, just to name a few. And I'm so glad that you opened that door up for us to be able to share what comes to our minds when we hear those words. And what we did was we sit down at workshops across the nation: Oakland, Detroit, New York, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. And we came up with what our language should be, what we should be looked at as people. And we came up with words like formerly incarcerated people, directly impacted person, system impacted person, people with lived experiences, returning citizens, incarcerated individuals, individuals in the legal process. And in the recovery world, we wanted to remove harmful words just like addict, alcoholic, junkie, drug abuser, user, clean. I mean, to call somebody clean or dirty, I mean, this is where we're at. Former addict. And we wanted to remove those harmful words with person with SUD, person with alcohol use disorder, person who uses drugs, person in recovery, person dealing with addiction, and so on. We had to learn how to humanize ourselves and humanize others that we were working with as well, and give them the same dignity and respect that we wanted. And here's some of the things that also helped us shift our language. A longtime great friend of mine that did a lot of national work, Eddie Ellis, he's always stated, if you are serious about justice, stop with the labels, because that's exactly what it is. It's giving individuals just like myself a label that dehumanize and criminalize. Call us people, call us human beings. There's nothing wrong with calling us people. There's nothing wrong with seeing us as humans. Another one, I don't remember exactly where this came from, but it says, if you are working with people, learn the demographic you are working with and give them the dignity and respect that you would want as well. And this is how I work with people just like myself every day. I give them the same respect that I want them to give me. Seems to work out pretty good. And then last but not least, we must practice in our everyday life to remove harmful language that dehumanizes people and begin to use and implement people first language and humanizing language in our everyday efforts. And that comes from me, Savvy Shabazz, and that's something that I stand on every day. We've been working on that language barrier and shifting that language for the last 7 years.
Is my audio working now? Okay, looks like it's working. Sorry about that, you all. So the way that we're going to be moving through our day to day, and we'll have lots of reflection opportunities as we go, we're going to start off with some data and information from our group on what we've learned about some of the challenges that we're facing with the reentry process. And again, really want folks to think about the reentry process as you're really focusing our lenses as navigators today on this really challenging and complex system intersection to navigate, because we all have a part to play as helping professionals in supporting folks who are reentering citizens here. So we're going to start off with mapping some of the challenges based on the data that exists out there and the things that we have learned as a group about the challenges with reentry. Then we're going to learn about some of the solutions and ways to address those challenges. And finally, think about some ways that we can use opioid abatement funds and other sources to really empower folks throughout the reentry process and the helping professionals who are in this space here. So we're going to start off again first with grounding us in the realities of this process. So as always, we start off, navigators, with what does the research have to say about the reentry process and overdose prevention? So I think the most important thing from my perspective here is remembering that overdose is the leading cause of death for people recently released from incarceration. And this is because while incarcerated, if you're not receiving appropriate treatment, your tolerance for opioids goes way down. And when you reenter the community and maybe return to use, your system is going to have a much stronger reaction to those substances with a return to use, and 120 times more likely to die than someone who doesn't have opioid use disorder when you're released here. And when we're looking at the percentage affected, substance use disorder affects 65%, and opioid use disorder affects at least 25% of people who are incarcerated. But as you'll see in a minute here, we really don't have a lot of great data on the extent of opioid use disorder, especially in county jails here. And of course, we know that substance use disorder is a chronic medical condition. So like any chronic medical condition, returns to the experiences of this disorder are typical and normal, right? So on average, 5 serious recovery attempts are made before successful recovery. And some of the big challenges here and facing these different risks associated with the reentry process, for people who have been detained but haven't yet been sentenced, we really don't know when they're going to be released because court hearings are unpredictable that set bail and bond decisions and sentences and release dates. So sometimes a jail facility is finding out maybe 20 minutes before someone's going to be released in the middle of the night. So no real opportunity to prepare folks for reentry, and all of the challenges with accessing health insurance that for folks who are on Medicare and Medicaid is suspended when you're incarcerated. Identification, transportation, housing, employment. And then at the same time, in the face of those challenges, staff and contracted medical providers really don't have the bandwidth to be able to develop the individualized community-based treatment plans that we really need in order for people to pursue their recovery from incarceration back into the community. The big highlights I want to make here on this slide in terms of what the research says is just looking at the numbers, right? We're helping professionals and we care about the people we serve for their intrinsic humanity and dignity, but there's also a dollars and cents case here, right? So in Kentucky, we have one of the top rates of opioid use disorder per capita. And then this recent study of the financial impact of opioid use disorder puts the average total cost per opioid use disorder case at approximately $700,000. The other thing that you see on this slide, this graphic from the Prison Policy Institute, shows us the number of folks in Kentucky who are behind bars or under community supervision in the Commonwealth. And what I want to highlight here is that only like this wedge here, state prisons, federal prisons, is less than 25% of the entire population of folks who are on supervision or incarcerated in county jails. But those are the only folks that are receiving Department of Corrections reentry services. You have to be classified as a state inmate and sentenced in order to receive any of those services. So for a lot of folks on probation and parole in local jails, you may have a social service clinician that you're working with while you're on supervision. You may have a few folks in the jail who have some capacity to help, but it is really a threadbare in terms of the services for that other 75% that isn't in the state prison facilities. And that's really what we learned from our statewide survey. And I'll turn it over to Susanna to tell us about what we learned about the needs and the challenges here in Kentucky.
So thanks, Margaret. As the RETA Hub, we've been partnering with the Kentucky Judicial Commission on Mental Health, which is a judicial commission charged with understanding, evaluating, and improving provisions and services across our judicial system in Kentucky. And so one of the questions they had related so closely to what Margaret's talking about with the volume of people coming through our carceral facilities, what services, what programs are actually in place, and what does that population look like? And so the Judicial Commission wanted to get a broad landscape analysis done of all of our 76 jails, depending on how you count them, and really get a head-to-toe overview of what was happening at those jails, what does it look like, what is happening to our people, our Kentuckians, as they go through these facilities. And so we worked with them to construct a fairly large survey. I think it was 8 sections, 150 questions. Their team helped, sending out behavioral health liaisons to make sure we had completed answers. And we ultimately ended up with 58 of our county jails responding and providing information. They were open-ended questions about needs and obstacles. But honestly, I think if any of you are familiar with our county jail system in Kentucky, you won't be surprised about the challenges that came out in that data. They are under-resourced, they are understaffed, they don't have the capacity or the specialization to combat so many of the issues coming through their jail. And so it's really just they desperately need resources. And I will say in those open questions, our jailers called again and again for particularly mental health resources across every and any spectrum you can imagine. And so one of the things we were able to dig into is the screening data, right? How are we identifying the challenges? And so this Mental Health Commission survey focused on mental illness, serious mental illness, opioid use disorder, substance use disorder, individuals with developmental disabilities, traumatic brain injury, suicide risk, and I know I'm forgetting at least one other. So we really ran the full scope. And how are you identifying individuals that may need additional support, medications, healthcare, provision as they're coming through your facility? Again, probably not surprising to anybody here, while everybody is screening, the data on the number of individuals coming through with any given diagnosis or need was really all over the place. Some jails are clearly collecting it, but there's that disconnect, right, between the jailer and their healthcare provider. They are not one and the same. And so getting that information or making sure it's tracked leads to issues. And so we had numbers all over the place, but they are still stark enough that you realize what a challenge our jails are facing. How many people are coming through? Up to 900 in a given year. And that's just who they've identified, right, through this process. You all know how many slip through and don't get caught in those screening processes. SUD averages went all the way up to 1175, OUD to 1720. Nearly 2,000 people coming through a facility that screened positive for opioid use disorder. What are we doing? What are we doing to help our fellow Commonwealth citizens as they go through these facilities and need care to not have, right? To not be a repeat offender, to not go back to jail? How are we building structures and supports to keep them going? But then after that screening data, what really happened is it dropped off. And so I will say across the board, one of our leading recommendations from the RETA Hub and that the Commission is responding to well is the lack of data. If we cannot identify the number of individuals in need of supports and services going through our facilities, we can't begin to properly help them. We know we don't have enough resources, but we don't know the scale and we don't have a great sense on it. Particularly as it comes to reentry services, though, in this group, in that care navigation, we asked, several detailed questions on what's happening with jails going through it. And while lots of them, I think 40 jails reported reentry services, what we found is the data collection and the more in-depth support is being provided by generally external or community partners, right? Groups like Brittany's Pathways and Voices of Hopes and people that are working from outside the jail to really document that transition and that data. 20 jails were able to provide a number on the individuals receiving reentry. We had, going back to Margaret's numbers, literally hundreds of thousands of people moving through our system each year, and only 20 jails were able to tell us anything about what was happening. And that data had come from their community partner. If it hadn't been tracked there, we wouldn't know what the outcome was. Positive responses on transportation, but you'll notice that 15 jails also only report providing an individual with a written copy of their reentry plan. So somebody leaves the facility with nothing else on them, right? No phone, no ID. They may not have their Medicaid reinstated, and they don't even have the list of contact numbers for the appointments to go about. Where can they start with a job search? Where can they start with healthcare? Where can they start to get their insurance back? What are their housing options? And so it's just over and over, you see that dearth, and that came out from these survey responses. And so now we're working with the Commission and other partners to identify those gaps. But down there at the quote, you'll see from one of our open text responses from the jailers, there are resources to help, but the number that needs help keeps growing. And I know as care navigators across any facility, you know the truth of that statement. We just need to do more. And so then the question for you all, on this Menti, is how does that survey data resonate with what you all have seen in practice as care providers?
So as we are responding to the Menti poll here, Christy is saying out in the chat, saying all the things that we need out loud can be really overwhelming just hearing it, right? Kind of going through that list. Yeah, absolutely, right? And we think about it, I think about it in terms of like the intersection of these systems. As helping professionals, I'm just helping with the housing on this piece, but that's not the entire experience of that individual, right? Yeah, so totally, Christy. And we're seeing in the chat here, not accurate across all jails. Yes, absolutely, right? Lots of variation. Every jail is different. I heard a wonderful slogan from one of our judge executives that I say all the time. If you've seen one county jail in Kentucky, you've seen one county jail, right? So that is absolutely right. We're looking at the aggregate data across, and we really have some superstar jails that are doing wonderful things as well. Criminalizing a health crisis, right? Yeah, a great capture of key data. Jails need more support. So much work needs to be done, right? That's why we wanted to bring this to you all as our helping professional system navigators so that you know what we're working on here and we can all keep working in this direction together because so much work needs to be done. But Sean's got some great no's out in the chat here with the Best Kentucky training. They just got peer support training in Marion County, which is Lebanon SAP and SOAR, as well as Powell County SAP. That is so, so fantastic. Wonderful, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing that. Every little piece really matters. Susanna, anything else from what you're seeing here from folks in terms of what resonates?
No, I mean, I think, we all hear the same sort of overwhelming message. And I will say for the comment about not accurate across the jails and the jails needing support, one thing we did want to do in putting out this survey is make sure we were getting that insight from jails, right? You do have a lot of people that work in those facilities that really care about the people they are taking care of. And a jail can't do anything when they simply don't have the funding. So we also made sure to be able to elevate those capacity constraints, the inability to pay sufficient staff, all of those things, and get that robust, comprehensive picture.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
There's a legislation that went out, and if it's someone's like an opiate addict and need medication assisted treatment, then 3 months prior to release, they're allowed to get that Medicaid started. But I got with the jail, and they don't have anyone there that can help them do that. And so, although these things are being put in place, they, like you said, they don't have the manpower or the people to actually help do these things. So, a plan definitely needs to be put in place.
Christy, absolutely. That 1115 waiver that came in through Medicaid that is supporting our state prisons and providing some of that reentry and medication support. One of the reasons that they couldn't submit that application to include jails, because other states have, is they don't have the infrastructure. And that was one of the requirements ahead of time. Are you actually able to carry out this kind of treatment program? And unfortunately, we're not there yet, right?
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Susanna. And great stuff coming in the chat, more help, less punishment. So this comment here, data is a great place to start, but we need to humanize the data. We're on it. That's the photo voice exhibit you're going to see a preview of here in a minute. But before we do that, I want to turn it over to Savvy to just talk a little bit more about another one of the complications when we're thinking about helping folks who are returning to our communities from incarceration, post-incarceration syndrome. Just want to make sure everybody has this vocabulary, Savvy, if you wouldn't mind to give us that definition.
Thank you. Again, I'm Savvy Shabazz. Here you'll see post-incarceration syndrome. This is something that is serious. It's something that we've been advocating for across the nation for a very long time. And I've been doing presentations and just advocating across the state of Kentucky and across the nation and working with other people with lived experience as well. It's the mental and emotional impact of incarceration. What does that look like after release? We all know that people are coming home, but what are people coming home with? It's a set of psychological and emotional challenge experience after incarceration. They're very similar to PTSD, and that impacts a person's ability to successfully re-enter families and communities. from a lived experience insight, coming from people just like me. Coming home doesn't mean that you're free mentally. After incarceration, I personally experienced hypervigilance, flashbacks, anxiety, difficulty trusting each other, and challenges adjusting to everyday decision making. Most responses were rooted in survival. This is what incarceration is rooted in, survival. So here's some more information as well about post-incarceration syndrome. We call it, you see the parentheses, we call it PICS, P-I-C-S. Always being on guard, hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, overthinking things, isolation, and difficulty building relationships, institutional thinking, and fear of authority. What are some of the things that can help with this? Peer support and creating those safe places, having those power circle meetings with people with like minds and people that have the same lived experiences as well, having those peer support specialists that have the lived experience. One thing that I provide with my organization as well is one-on-one reentry coaching. What does that look like to sit across from someone that has been in the same institutions and the same situation and system that you've been in, and you're giving them the map to be successful? Trauma-informed care. What does that look like? That changes from the statement, what's wrong with you, and opens up the door to ask what happened. So we can give the assistance through peer support for what that person needs. Life skills and emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence builds stronger trust. It builds stronger relationships with individuals too. Life skills. Everyone has life skills. We have a very unique curriculum that we built with life skills. So it's very unique and it's very personal with people that have been incarcerated and people dealing with recovery. And then you have your community. You're only going to be as good as your support system in your community. Again, in the beginning, you heard her mention about the importance of coming home to families and community. But not only the accountability part of being held accountable, we have to learn how to hold ourselves accountable for the decisions that we make as well. And also the finding that purpose. What is your why? Why are you doing this? What does it look like? What is your purpose in finding that purpose? So I have a call to action as well. Recognize PICS, address it, support the whole person, create opportunities. Reentry is just not about coming home. It's about learning how to live again too.
Margaret, your audio's not. Okay. So let's talk about what, hopefully my audio is working again here. I'm so sorry for that. So let's talk a little bit now about, like I promised that we'd start off with some of the challenges and some of the data here about what we're facing with as navigators and helping professionals in this most complex intersection of systems. Now it's time to share some solutions for building reentry and system navigation capacity through peer support, including some stories from our leads for our Reimagining Reentry work group through Photo Voice. But first, let's hear from Savvy about how he is responding to PICS with his amazing reentry, H1 Teach One reentry fellowship.
Thank you again. So here you'll see Life Coach H1 Teach One Reentry Fellowship, which is a nonprofit organization that I founded actually while I was incarcerated. Worked on it over the years, implemented some things, took some things out, and here we are today. So what do? We transform the lives through reentry, recovery, and civic engagement, which is a very big part of what we do too. Who we are, we're a community-based reentry organization. We provide educational resources, all resources, direct support to justice impacted individuals locally across Kentucky and beyond, because we have a national recognition as well. What does our impact look like locally in Louisville? We have a life skills training. We contract with individuals and organizations. We come in once a week, and it's called Bridging the Gap. We have to learn how to bridge the gap between recovery and reentry. There's going to be a large part of individuals that you work with that are dealing with recovery that aren't getting reentry services. There's going to be a large part of people that are dealing with reentry that actually need reentry services. Here we combine both and we bridge the gap. We have a jail-based voting campaign. We provide reentry workshops, community partnerships, just connecting individuals to jobs and recovery support that they need to be successful. Statewide, we do a lot of advocacy work, voter education and restoration, organizing in cities like my hometown, Paducah, Mayfield, Lexington, Frankfort, and we advocate for justice reform throughout those areas. Everything that you'll see us doing here in Louisville, you'll see us doing in those other cities as well. On a national note, I do a lot of guest speaking, keynote speaking, workshop facilitation, moderation on panels, in collaboration with justice reform organizations such as FICPFM, Vote NOLA, All of Us Are None. And this is just to expand the awareness about reentry and recovery and creating second chances for individuals.
Amazing, Savvy.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and move us along to Brittany to talk about our Reimagining Reentry work group that Savvy, Brittany, and Ashley lead alongside with Brittany. And I said Ashley, Rebecca, Brittany, Savvy. That's our Fab Four there. So Brittany, take it away. Tell us a little bit about the work group and why we're doing this photo voice project to help take us beyond just the data to get to the real stories of what this system navigation work looks like.
For sure. And that comment, humanizing the data, could not be better for what we're going to talk about. But Reimagining Reentry work group come from just talking with peers and people doing the work, and then talking with this niche group of people in recovery and people with lived experience doing work in carceral settings, and then hearing their needs, supports, and challenges look a little different than peers working in recovery community organizations or in clinics and treatment centers. So we quickly realized, like, the challenges and supports they need, maybe we could bring everybody together and talk about those and create a little network of people that could share resources and really support each other. The really hard thing about being a person with lived experience and a person who's been locked up before and a person that goes to work in a jail is there's a lot of stigma there. People aren't treated very well in our jails. People aren't treated like humans oftentimes. And when you got somebody that walks in with lived experience of incarceration, there's a lot of what is that, cognitive dissonance that happens in some brains there, and there's these a smashing of ideas, and stigma is reduced in settings like that. And we all were like navigating that in our little silos. So this group has brought people together from all over the state, working in carceral settings and working with the population leaving incarceration. And it's been a huge blessing to share our strengths, to share our skills and our supports, and to really be able to count and lean on each other and build a network across the state. So what happened was, I don't know what is our next slide about photo voice, Margaret? I have it pulled up in the background. Yeah. What happened was we had lots of discussions about data. And several years ago, if some of you guys are familiar with the Healing Communities study, I was blessed to be a participant in pilot counties, Wave 1 and Wave 2 counties. And during that study at the end, some really smart researchers said, let's capture some data in a way that people can relate to, in a way that puts a face to an idea. And we did this photo voice project. The feedback and the conversations that come from it were amazing in regards to reducing overdose deaths. Margaret had the idea, maybe we could do it with this population. And there wasn't a second. I mean, immediately I said, please, let's roll, let's do this. And that's what we did. So we asked the normal questions. We asked the questions about what do we need for supports. We asked the questions about what challenges get in the way of serving this population. We asked just general questions. And instead of capturing the answers to those in words, which we have some words as well, we really wanted to see what image comes to mind when answering that question. And this is an image I've submitted. And this was about challenges and barriers in working with this population. And one of the challenges that I often face with working with people is we see our people get the supports they need and get foundations started, and they're really like coming into their own, but they're still attached to a tree with some sick limbs. They come from a family that's experienced generational poverty. They come from a family, or they're living in a home where people are actively struggling with substance use or mental health. Or even physical health disorders that go untreated. They're living in a home where resources aren't plentiful and everybody's struggling. And it's so hard to pull somebody up and on their feet, but it's even harder when they're surrounded by people who want to keep them on the ground. So that's just one of the challenges that I see a lot in the work I do is we focus on the limb we got. We got a person, but that person is attached to a tree, and the health of that tree matters.
Rebecca, tell us about our next one.
Yeah.
This, I titled it Good Old Boys, because if you live in a rural area, you know that the roads are winding and narrow. Everyone has to travel the same roads, but they're not traveled equally. Some people get a good, comfortable ride. Some people are on a bicycle. And this sign says road closed, 1 mile ahead, local traffic only. And to me, that was extremely searing language to use on the sign that related back to this. Because two people can have the exact same sentence. They can the exact same charges, sentence, everything. But one of them can have a relative that knows someone in the court system, so they get a little bit of an easier time. They get a lower bond or no bond at all. Where somebody who doesn't have those connections, they're not afforded that same experience. Also, probably title this maybe generational wealth. Because when we're thinking about wealth, that's one thing that makes you wealthy in a small town, who you know, who your family is, how healthy your family tree is, right, Brittany? Your tree's really good and healthy. A lot of people want to hang out underneath of it. They want to get in the shade of your tree. If you don't have a very healthy tree, nobody really wants to look at it. They don't want to pay any attention to it. And I saw this a lot. I saw a lot of people get afforded a whole lot more opportunities to have more chances and get things right that other people were not. And it was just simple things like the person in drug court had their older brother fished with the person who was over drug court in the county. So they got an extra 6 months before that they were ever received any repercussions for not getting employment. It's just not the same across the board.
Yeah, good old boys alive and well, Rebecca. And of course, folks, keep putting responses out in the chat. We'll have a word cloud in a minute, but want to get our key shares here so you guys can see the Photo Voice exhibit. And these are our key highlights from the Photo Voice leads for Reimagining Reentry. But when we get together in September, we're going to have the full exhibit from all of the participants, including Carissa and some of the wonderful folks on this call. So Savvy, tell us about this one, what we're representing here with the images and the numbers.
Thank you. This represents time is money. This is a representation of my personal journey from incarceration. In the top left, where you see the handsome guy Savvy, which was about 20 years ago, was at Western Kentucky Correctional Complex when I took that picture, and it shows the position I was in and where I was at in life as well. But also, once I was released, you look at the bottom. This is what I walked into the day I was released. And we thought about, some of the things that we were faced with. And we look at the cost. Our state and legislators, we talk about the cost of incarceration, cost for this, cost for that. So for 5.5 years, I did 2,009 days. That was 48,216 hours. That was 2,892,960 minutes. That was 173,577,600 seconds. In Kentucky, incarceration costs are often estimated between $30,000 and $40,000 per year, per person per year. Let's look at the math. $35,000 per year times 5.5, that's $192,000. $192,500. That could fund years of reentry support, recovery support, vocational training, housing assistance, life skills programming for not just one individual, but for multiple individuals. And I want to share this with the Photo Voice team and everyone. Just let you know, time is money.
I think my audio is doing weird stuff again, but Ashley, I'm trying to pivot to you. Here's another time is money piece, but this is a piece that is a different part of the process.
Right. So my name is Ashley Marler, and this is my contribution. I titled it Freedom Isn't Free. So immediately upon release and reentering society, if you're on supervision, then supervision fees start the day of. Failure to pay can result in revocation. And just like Rebecca was talking about before, somebody had like a 6-month grace period, because I kind of live in a small town too, so it's the good old boys. Some people get a little bit more grace than others, but no, it's an already overwhelming load, like we talked about in the pics, the post incarceration. But it's necessary, and it requires the community's resources and communication for all of it to succeed, because it's hard to navigate the system once you're released. I was talking to someone actually this morning about it, being released on supervision. They thought calling in was their check-in. I was like, no, you have to go in person. So it's just small things like that, even to help navigate the system. But this one is a big one. The supervision fees, and like I said, they start immediately and they're expected to be paid immediately. And most times you won't even get off of supervision until all of it is paid up. It will accumulate the whole time you're on supervision. And if it's not paid, you will not be released from supervision. So it's very important.
So what word comes to mind as you were hearing about the Reimagining Reentry Photo Voice project? Again, bringing those stories and pictures together with the data to understand what these journeys look like. What word comes to mind? We're hearing about dollars and cents and their cumulative effect on the inside and on the outside from Ashley and Savvy, from all those intergenerational roots from Brittany and Rebecca, for the realities that even though we're talking about the criminal legal system, there's bias, right, and preference around who knows whom. So what are we taking away? Unfair, yeah, right? Justice. When we're talking about justice, and often the language these days is criminal legal system rather than criminal justice system, because we don't want to imply that the system necessarily delivers justice. That takes more work, right? Incarceration is a waste. Yeah, right. What are those trade-offs and alternatives with the costs there? I love reclaiming here. Yes, that's a great reclaiming, right? Impossible cycle, totally. And I'm curious too, Brittany, if you want to reflect on any of these as they're coming in here with our images and how they relate to with our photo, with our reactions here, and now they're relating to what we've been talking about in the Photo Voice group. Reinventing, reclaiming. We've been talking about all these rewords, right?
And you guys don't get to see, hopefully in September, you'll get to see the rest of the photos, but all these words are really lining up with the opinions and perspectives we got from peers all across the state. We're all trying to do our part in fixing a system that is not designed to fix people. And it's frustrating. I mean, because we know the changes while we're doing our part and we're really just speaking truth and collecting data and bringing attention, the changes are way above us. I mean, the changes that need to happen are legislatively. And here's the thing about Kentucky, legislative changes can happen, but like Margaret said earlier, the infrastructure isn't there. So when we talk about the changes that need to happen, if we're going to continue to incarcerate our way out of the problem, the jails aren't even designed to be places where people can recover. I mean, we need new brick and mortars. We need new buildings. I mean, we just are in an impossible situation right now. And we've got to start looking at other solutions. Fixing our problem the way that it needs to be fixed to provide therapeutic outcomes from incarceration is not possible. So either we reduce the amount of people we're arresting and send people more into therapeutic treatments in our community, or we continue seeing the outcomes we have in our current system. So it's really, we're in a predicament in our state, for sure.
We have a critical mass of helpers here who I think are starting to bend that curve, right? So
Yeah.
thank you for highlighting that, Brittany. And also, like, again, we're looking at a systemic level. This isn't individuals, right? We are
Right.
all doing the best we can in our different places in the system. But given those structural issues we went over, it goes back to how do we help when the system can't fix it from last week, right? How do we stay in these spaces and keep making sure people understand? And that's kind of where I was thinking about photography as an image for what we do as navigators, right? It helps that, like, when we think about photo voice and documentation, it's taking those images from the beginning and being like, nope, that's not the real story of this person, right? It's how we can use documentation and our power as storytellers, as helping professionals to change those narratives here.
Well, and another thing I want to point out just happened in the comments. So Laura mentioned, the metaphors and the opinions and perspectives that come from just one image are crazy. I didn't think about that. Someone being out on a limb by themselves, you know. And Rebecca used several great metaphors with her good old boys image. That's another highlight of using this project to really bring about ideas and change and look at things from multiple perspectives.
Thanks, y'all. And really powerful stuff in the word cloud here. I just wanted to highlight in particular, setting up to fail, implementation failure, all of that. So we're not assigning failure to folks who are, returning to use or returning to incarceration. It's a system failure. And we're all dealing with the moral injury of what people experience there. So again, just appreciate how everybody's looking up, even though we're talking about individual stories, we're looking at this system level as navigators, right? So let's talk about a call to action. What can we do to promote peer supports in the reentry process? And given this vital role in not only supporting people in their reentry journey, but also understanding the realities and needs at this very complex intersection of systems. So I'll turn it over to Susanna, who's been doing a ton of work in this space, to talk about what's out there with opioid abatement funding.
Thanks again. So one of the things we're talking about, right, is how under-resourced there are, how many more programs and supports we need. And so, there is no positive outcome from the opioid epidemic as Kentucky has experienced it, but we have sued the dickens out of some companies. And so as a result, Kentucky, along with many states throughout the country, have settlement funds, right? It is a national settlement. It's been Johnson & Johnson, I think Purdue, all kinds of pharmaceutical companies, distributors, pharmacies, they've been sued and they have provided funding, much like if you know about our tobacco settlement, similar kind of prospect. And so Kentucky has received over $1 billion in funding. And this is to be allocated into two buckets, right? 50% of it is going to the state to distribute and engage in remediation and abatement spending. And 50% is going to our local governments. This can be your county government, your city government, different localities. And there are guidelines for how to use these funds. So they are dictated by the National Opioid Settlement Agreement. It's Exhibit E, as noted down below. But really what it's aimed at is how do we come back from this epidemic and how has it impacted our communities, our systems, and how can we use these funds to try and push back against that? Obviously, with this conversation around reentry and our work in the RETA Hub, there's particular emphasis from our end on that. But it's an opportunity for jails to get resources to implement treatment programs. It's for community partners to get increased funding for peer supports and counselors and therapists to go into facilities and provide those things. And so on this next slide, there's a brief overview of some of the allowable uses of opioid settlement funds and how they've been used. One is naloxone, known as the opioid overdose reversal drug, right? Medications for opioid use disorder, whether it's in jails, without, any kind of way to go in about it. Services for pregnant women, neonatal abstinence syndrome, handoff programs, prevention programs focused on youth, on the incarcerated population. And it's all, trying to have that evidence-based data collection on the back end. So there are a couple of different places you guys can go for this. One, the RETA Hub, we provide support in trying to hack down that funding with no cost. CAECO is providing webinars and information about how to apply for and utilize the opioid funds as best you can. And you can go to the state's commission website to see who's been funded and for what, and understand the projects throughout the state and within your community. And then there's guidance on going to your own fiscal court, right? Seeking down if I'm in Greenup County, what are they doing with the funds? How are they investing it? Are they looking at housing? Are they looking at reentry? How are we as a community using these funds that are an opportunity we're not going to get again, you all? So anywhere you can, any partner you have, go for this funding and help build back what the opioid epidemic has taken from us.
Thank you so much, Susanna. And we're going to pop out into the chat. Kelsey's going to pop out into the chat the link to the new Opioid Abatement Commission dashboard, where you can see current spending for your county down to the details of their local reporting there. So yes, please check that out. And one last thing we want to share with you all here today as another piece of our puzzle, the work that we've been doing with Navigators, with Reimagining Reentry, and then this third group, our MOUD in Jails, Community of Practice, where we're bringing together folks who are the boots on the ground, jail administrators, contracted medical providers, peer supports like Ashley and Savvy and Rebecca and Brittany, and state leadership to see what we can do to break down barriers to implementing MOUD in jails. And we did this cool video that we wanted to share with you all here as an educational resource that may be relevant to your work as navigators in helping folks understand the benefits of MOUD, providing that in jails to help support folks during not only while they're incarcerated, but during reentry as we're thinking about that high overdose risk rate here. So I'm going to keep this up here, pull this over to, I think the video is here. Okay, great.
Every county in Kentucky is facing the devastating effects of the opioid overdose crisis. It's an especially urgent matter for those in the criminal legal system, where a high percentage of people moving through county jails have an opioid use disorder and face a high risk of overdose upon release. Using available opioid settlement funds, counties have a historic chance to change that. But many local leaders still have questions like, what can the funds be used for? Which models have worked in other counties? Do medications work, or is it simply trading one drug for another? How to comply with federal law without the staff and resources to deliver treatment consistently. The good news is, help is available and easy to access. Starting with guidance found in the terms of the National Opioid Settlements, Exhibit E, medications for opioid use disorder are identified as an appropriate and allowable use for abatement funds, and a treatment which is proving to be a highly effective and sustainable response to the overdose crisis across the state. There are 3 FDA-approved medications that treat opioid use disorder: methadone, buprenorphine, and naltrexone. Methadone and buprenorphine are the proven gold standard, effectively managing withdrawal and pain, as well as reducing cravings, relapse, and overdose risk. The results? Facilities using them report reduced recidivism and decreased use of force and restraints. And people who receive MOUD treatment in jail are more than 50% less likely to die from an opioid overdose after returning to their communities. And they are more likely to stay in treatment, avoid risk, and see improved health outcomes overall. Because opioid use disorder is recognized as a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act, incarcerated individuals are guaranteed access to treatments related to their condition, just as people with diabetes or hypertension are entitled to the medications needed to manage their long-term health. Although opioid use disorder is defined as a chronic, treatable brain disease, more than 80% of incarcerated individuals with this condition are denied care while in custody. This denial not only violates medical standards, it exposes correctional agencies to legal liability under the ADA. That's why it's important for local agencies to be aware that providing access to medications for opioid use disorder isn't optional. It is an ethical and legal obligation. To help implement these evidence-based programs and answer your critical questions, expert technical assistance is available at no cost for major universities and county leadership associations, all working together to support local governments and jails in identifying partners, navigating contracts and federal guidelines, and leveraging existing state and federal resources. With ongoing training sessions near you and a library of toolkits available online, it's easier than ever to get the guidance you need. With the availability of both funding and no-cost technical assistance designated for county officials, this is the moment to act on expanding medications for opioid use disorder in county jails to save lives and improve the safety and well-being of all those within your care, from patients to service providers to jail staff and all those who've sworn to serve and protect. Find out more and sign up for the free training today.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause the screen for a second. This is one of our tools that we'd love to get some feedback on from you all as kind of some of our first viewers of this tool outside of the work group. So I'd love your input on that. And we'll pop that link out in the chat, but you can use that QR code. Short little survey on the video so that we have a good understanding of how to use that tool going forward. But we're going to be sharing that link with you all so you have that piece as well as all of the materials that we shared today, especially that data. If you would like more detailed data on what your county jail that you serve or county jails you served reported in that survey that Susanna reviewed, we would be more than happy to pull those reports for you so you are empowered with that information as well here. So give everybody a minute here to pull that up. And then I wanted to take our last few minutes here to give us a preview of where we're heading next. Oop. So as you all know, we are getting together in person in Frankfurt at the CAECO offices on September 17th. Kelsey's going to be sending out some guidance and instructions about registration. We are over capacity at this point, which is a really like the best problem in the world to have. So Kelsey's going to be following up with folks next week, and we're getting all of our ducks in a row. Super excited to host you all. And as Brittany said, we're going to have the full photo voice exhibit with all 45 contributions from all of our work group members as kind of our feature, a highlight that you're going to be able to explore and interact with all of the photo voice work group folks, including the amazing Carissa Higdon, who's on from Voices of Hope and working in those state facilities. So really would love to have you all there on the 17th. But because we're getting together in person on the 17th, we're not going to do Navigators at the end of September. We will skip September, do our in-person, and then get together in October. And for our October session, we're going to be doing some reflecting, learning, and continued networking around what comes out of our in-person gathering on the 17th. So the other big piece of Navigator activity that's going to be happening in addition to our in-person gathering on the 17th is the amazing Kristen Thiel's dissertation project funded by NIH. So fancy, so awesome to get to evaluate navigators. Oh my gosh. So Kristen, tell us what the opportunity is and what folks should be looking for ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margaret. So I am so excited to be a part of this. Margaret and Valerie, who lead Navigators, provide such an incredible opportunity to us all. And so I'm going to be doing evaluation on kind of like, what does this interprofessional type of training look like and mean? What do our professionals get from it? What are their experiences? How are they're learning? How are they networking and things like that? So I'll be sending an email if you have participated in 3 or more Navigator sessions to invite you to a voluntary either ripple effect mapping or focus groups. You can feel free to participate in either or, but this is really important to get your feedback and opinions and just valuable insights, because what I've realized, I'm doing a large systematic review of interprofessional trainings. Navigators is quite unique. Not really anybody is doing a complete free training in their state for all helping professionals to come together, get to have this time once a month, bring together incredible guest speakers like we had today, and just have this free training. And as we know, as funding has been cut for lots of different areas and professional training, this is just a great opportunity that Margaret and Valerie and the University of Kentucky is providing. So I'll be following up in email, but I would love to hear your opinions and feedback and look forward to getting to connect with each of you.
Thanks so much, Kristen. So be looking for that from Kristen. We'll get together on the 17th. Kelsey just put the registration link out in the chat. Mindy, of course, we need to have you there. I mean, Northeast Kentucky has to show up in force for that, because you guys are just like the best coalition and cross-sector group in the whole Commonwealth, if not the whole nation, I would say. I will brag on all of that. So much of this work comes from this whole crew coming together. We are so excited for this opportunity to learn, and grateful to Kristen for this opportunity for reflection and understanding of what we have built here together. So super excited to be with you all on the 17th. And thank you to Reimagining Reentry. Let's give everybody a big virtual round of applause for Reimagining Reentry, Photo Voice Project, all the things. So grateful for everyone's leadership and advocacy in this space. And we'll see you all in just a few weeks. And it's the height of Virgo season. We have a lot of Virgos on our crew. So we are just enjoying this time to all get super organized, put all of our little ducks in a row, and have a great party and gathering with you all on the 17th. It's just going to be a blast, a highlight of all of our years to get to be together. We'll see you then. I'll send all the follow-up materials as always. Y'all are the best. Go navigate. Go help our folks out there. Bye, you all.